Welcome to this week's episode of the Rutledge Perspective podcast with my amazing guest, Jadeè. You are going to love this conversation. She is the CEO of Corporate Solutions Tech, and her motto is, "We simply find solutions." And y'all know I'm a solutions girl. So you're going to be able to see her entire bio in the show notes, but I want us to be able to spend this time really getting to know who she is and how she's done the things she's done, because that's what we do here. So, Jadeè, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I really appreciate you bringing me on. And as always, I always love any chance I can get just to chat with you. I'm down for it. I tell you that all the time. I'm ready.
Yeah, well, the feeling is absolutely mutual because there's just some good juice I know that's going to be here. And so, you've got this great business, and I always tell people that's great. When we introduce ourselves as what we do and what our title is and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't tell people who we are, and we work with people. So the first question I want to ask you is, who are you?
Who am I? Like, I actually like that question. It's kind of a question I always ask myself, like, who am I? What am I doing here? And why am I doing this? And
Yes.
really, I'm just this ambitious girl, little girl at heart that just wants to try everything and wanted to be everywhere in the world and wanted to have kids and a family and be able to, run a company and also be a mother and be there for everything that I could be there for as much as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
that really is who I am at heart. I'm very much an entrepreneur, very much a businesswoman. I absolutely love that. I love leading meetings and making new deals and everything that comes along with being an entrepreneur. But I also love being a mother
Mm-hmm.
equally as much.
Yeah.
And that's really who I am.
Yeah.
And a lot of my clients and employees and friends and family, every conversation is about the kids because to
Yes.
me, it's all intertwined in one because that's really who I am. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
this since I was 5 years old. And I just thank God that I'm in this position.
I love that. I love that because not all of us have that entrepreneur gene, right? And um, we, especially those of us of a certain age, get raised to, go get a job. Stay at that good job. Don't leave that good job, girl. Right? What are you doing? Do you know how much money you are making? What are you doing? Leave that good job, right? And yet you are one of the people that kind of had that from the very beginning, right? But you also did the W-2 thing. You worked for somebody else.
Yes.
So what drove you to actually finally make the decision? I've been wanting this since I was 5, but I've been doing the W-2 thing, but now it's time. What was that trigger for you?
So I'm very much a dreamy person just in general, and I have all these aspirations and dreams, and I think that I can change the world, kind of thing. But at the same time, I'm extremely logical. And, I'm in college. By the time I graduated my undergrad, I had 3 kids and I was married.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, do we go off and start businesses and live these dreams, or do I get a job? And I need a job. So I have all these skills. I have this degree. I'm going to work and I'm
Mhm.
going to work to the best of my ability because that's the way that I was raised. I was raised
Mhm.
to put everything into it, whether you're, flipping burgers or mopping the floor or you're running some Fortune 500 company, you should do it to the best of your ability.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what ended up happening. I just every opportunity that came across my table, I grasped it and I jumped on it. And also throughout the entire process, my background, I'm not I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. So everybody was a hustler. Everybody
Right?
had little side jobs and businesses and
Mhm.
everyone sold something that maybe they did hair or maybe
Mhm.
they drove little cabs like with their own cars. There's so many different things if you grow up in the quote unquote hood, you realize that there are a million entrepreneurs all around you, my parents included, and you do what you have to do to survive. So I've
Mhm.
always done this, but
Yeah.
then finally I had the opportunity to actually do it full time.
Yeah.
And that was about 5 years ago when I jumped in and said, okay, this is it. We're going for it. And, I had other businesses, but I still had that W-2 because,
Yeah.
or, I was a consultant, but I was a
Right.
W-2 consultant because listen, bills have to be paid. And if you have a
Yes.
family and, if you're like me, you're very logical, you're dreamy, but
Yes.
you're logical, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, does it really make sense? But
Right.
finally, sometimes you got to take a leap of faith and just
Mhm.
get out there and do it and know that you have the skill set and the ability to move
Yeah.
forward and be successful in it.
Absolutely. That I think it was Lisa Nichols that always said, you got to be willing to bet on yourself. And she said, if I'm gonna bet on
Yes.
anybody, I'm gonna bet on me. Right. And
Hmm.
and and yet sometimes that is one of the hardest leaps to make, even when we know we're good, even when we know we're good, because there's so much, ooh, but what if? What if nobody buys? What if the economy tanks? What if, there's something new and what I'm selling is not what people want, right? That resilience of, but I can always find a way. That's a different level of hustle, right? There's that belief in yourself for sure, and your skills and your capabilities. And then there's that next level of it doesn't matter what happens because I know me, I can find a way.
Hmm.
That's a whole different level of entrepreneurship. And even when in our first conversation, I'm like, she's got that next level of whatever it is, we're gonna figure it out. Cause see, to not figure it out is not an option.
Yeah.
What is it about that? Like how do you get someone to cultivate that? Or maybe the better question is, can you cultivate that?
I honestly think it's in you. It's either in you or it's not, but I also think that it could be a product of your environment and how you were raised and how you react to different, situations. I was
Mm-hmm.
always raised that failure is not an option. Failure
Right.
is inevitable, is what I
Yeah.
learned when I got older, is that
Right.
failure is inevitable. And actually, failure is not the end of the world because it means that maybe this is not the right path for you. You can
Mhm.
move in a different direction. But I was always raised with the mentality that failure is not an option. So
Mhm.
I took that in my later years as overall, my goal is at a high level, my goal is Z. And I
Mhm.
know that I got to get through all the other letters of the alphabet. I don't know exactly if I'm going to go in order. I don't know how I'm going to do
Yes.
this exactly, but that is the failure to reach Z. I'm not going to fail. So either you have it or you don't. Either you're going to push past all of the adversity or you're
Mhm.
just going to crumble.
Yeah.
And I have seen, I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I know a lot of people that aren't entrepreneurs. I know a lot of employees, right?
Mhm.
And, regular workers. And I've seen a lot of people kind of crumble under pressure.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I never really understood because for me, always had a lot of pressure in my life. I've
Mhm.
seen, my parents' generation and I've seen others and, the aunties and the uncles,
Yeah.
have the pressure of the weight of the world on their shoulders and still push forward and wake up the next
Mhm.
day and still, take the necessary steps to provide for their family. So I'm
Yes.
like, my little problems, I thank God for the problems that I have because it's people out there that wish they had my problems. So
Yeah.
why would I crumble under the pressure just because this deal didn't go through or I lost this contract or, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know. I can't afford to do that because it's not a financially I can't afford to do
Right.
it. It's internally, I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I crumble under the pressure. I just can't because I know what my goal is personally. And I've always been told from the beginning that, failure is not an option, even though it's
Right.
inevitable. It's
Right?
not an option because the end goal is
Yeah.
still on the tables. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm reaching for.
And that's so powerful that we sometimes I think forget because we get so caught up in the how. And I don't want those of you listening to miss what she just said, which is my goal is Z. I know I got to get through, all the other letters to get there. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but my goal is still Z. And we often get caught up in the how, in the path. And don't get me wrong, there's all the things about it's not the destination, it's the journey, it's the all those things, right? And I'm saying I'm not saying that that's not true. And when you are trying to build something and you've got a goal, the power of what you just heard is that keeping your eyes on the prize, as they say, enables you to have flexibility in the how. you can take that failure and say, "Ooh, well, maybe that's not going to work." But I still got
Mhm.
my eyes over here. So let me figure out something else that might work better. And so you don't lose complete, eyes on the end goal. You might lose a little momentum here and there, but you don't give up because you keep your eye on the prize. Well, one of the things, Jadeè, though, is that, in your business, really helping people and bringing on people to execute projects, right? That whole staffing model, seeing talent, bringing on talent, all of those kinds of things. If you connect that, what you are doing for your clients in terms of getting this talent ready with what you just said about kind of that internal, what is that drive? How do you tackle things that come up? Where have you seen your own drive and knowledge and desire connect to how you have built your business and how you help your clients get the right people in place?
So, you know, my background professionally is in technical project program management. So I've
Mhm,
been in the IT space for quite some time, and I kind of grew up in IT because my mom worked in IT.
mhm,
I knew I didn't want to be a developer, but I knew how to read code, and I had all the experience and stuff as a little kid. But one of the things that I naturally have been really good at is building processes and identifying connection points and
mhm.
identifying risk and issues within existing processes.
Yeah,
But then I also have this other unique component just about myself. And one of the things is, just in general for all entrepreneurs or non-entrepreneurs, if you're just looking for a career, you got to know what your skill sets are that you're good at.
yeah,
And over my career, I learned what those things are that I'm naturally good at and the things that I'm not good at either. I've
yes,
learned that too.
yeah,
But I've learned that I naturally have a knack for understanding people's
mhm,
concerns and issues and problems and giving them the pieces that they need that they don't necessarily know that they need.
yeah,
And also building those emotional connections because even though, a lot of people say that business is not personal, personal is not business, even, and, keep your work life at work and keep your home life at home when you go to work, it's almost impossible because we're humans. So a lot of times, I would notice things like with some of my coworkers that maybe were the difficult ones. And I would realize, oh, it's not really that they're difficult, it's that they have this issue going on. And so if I understand that problem, then
yeah,
I can get them to be more productive and we can all reach our end goal because they know that I have an understanding and a compassion for what they're going through.
yeah,
And so I kind of we use that same approach. And I've trained my staff to use that same approach. And when we look at positions that our clients have, or we might look at projects that our clients have, it's not just say you need a project manager. We're not going to just go and get a project manager with a PMP because that's exactly
right,
what you need, because that's
right,
what you say that you need. We're going to go look and see, is this person a culture fit? Do you really need a PM or do you really just need a project coordinator? Like, what
right,
is it that you really need? Do you need someone with that knows how to build their own processes, or do you need someone who knows how to follow a process? And
right,
sometimes you don't really realize those small little pieces. And that's the reason why you're having attrition or the reason why your projects are not successful. And those were the pieces along the way in my career that I was able to identify and build these massively successful projects for clients as a project manager or program
mhm,
manager,
mhm,
consultant and contractor and employee. And then I was able to take that same approach and apply it to my business. And another thing too is that when we're talking to our candidates, we get them to have an understanding that it's, you know, I believe in this day and age, and I want to say this the right way, but I
yeah,
believe in this day and age that sometimes social media gives you this misconception of what it's like in the workplace or what the
yes.
expectations are. And I come from an era. I come from an era where my freshman year of college is when Facebook came out, right?
Oh, yeah,
So yes, I do believe that I do understand where some of the the concerns come from employees where they're like, well, I don't want to work so hard because I'm just a number. I get that. But at the same time, if you have that mentality, you're always going to be in that same position. You're never going to elevate. You're always going to stay at that same rate of pay. And you're never
Mhm.
going to get to the goals that you really want to reach.
Right.
So don't be concerned about what everyone else is doing, and be concerned about what you're doing so that you can get to your end goal of getting this job and getting the next job or whatever it is that you
Mhm.
want to do in life. And so we're hitting that from both sides. So our employees are trained on how to deal with candidates that are coming from entry level or second chance
Mhm.
type of candidates to
Mhm.
candidates that are more executive level and looking to, maybe be a candidate to run a
Right.
Fortune 500 company.
Right.
So it's a very unique skill set. And it's
Mhm.
probably just because it's a mirror of what I am. I come from both
Mhm.
lifestyles.
Yes.
I come from
Yes.
both lifestyles. So I wanted to make sure that our employees were able to support both lifestyles, and that we also, wanted to be able to be a path, because someone back in my career showed me I had no idea what I was doing either.
Right.
I was barely making it. I didn't have a lot of money. I just continued to be as good as I possibly could
Mhm.
be at this particular job. And someone saw the light in me and said, hey,
Mhm.
you could be doing X, Y, and Z if you do these things. If you change
Mhm.
this, you're going to be amazing. And I took that and I did it without a pay raise. And
Right.
then the next job was the next job and the next job. And it just kind of built upon that.
Right. Well, and I think that's where you nailed it. That's where the misconception comes from. And having led, big HR departments and things, there's this whole movement now of um not only pay transparency, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I think, but I do think
Yeah.
you put pay ranges because there
Hmm.
is a value to experience. And I know that hurts people's feelings, but there is value to experience. But the other piece that comes out that I've seen lately is this whole movement around people just need to stop taking and other duties as assigned out of the job description because that just means they're just going to make you do more work and not pay you. I need you to stop, baby, because
Exactly.
it is as they say, a symbiotic relationship. You work, we pay you. When we pay you, you do the work we ask you to do. Now, nowhere in there did anybody say you should allow yourself to be mistreated. But these
Exactly.
guardrails that have been so narrowed that if it is not in the job description, then you're asking me to do something that you're not paying me for. That's a problem. We've swung the pendulum, right, too far. And because there have been a number of organizations that have taken advantage of people, especially during
Hmm.
COVID, right? So there's a reason behind it. But when you combine that with almost a societal movement and like you, I will say somewhat generational movement of I only
Hmm.
want to do what I want to do and I want to get paid what I want to get paid to only do what I want to do. That combination doesn't work to
It
actually run
doesn't
a
work.
business.
It never
Right.
works. It never works. And I always tell my employees, well, not just my employees, I always tell candidates and stuff, you're either one type of employee.
Yeah.
You either running the business or you're growing the business. And if you were
Right.
hired to grow the business and you're not willing to take on the additional responsibilities to make your role profitable, then you're no
Right.
longer needed in the company. And it's simple as
Exactly.
that. You can be making minimum
Exactly.
wage or you can be making 300K a year. And if you're not a profitable employee and you're brought on for the grow of the business side of the house, you're going to be cut. It's it's
Yes.
it's just, I mean, as a CEO, yes, I have compassion for the families that we're supporting because we have so many employees and maybe their only job. And I do have compassion for them,
Right.
but I also have a family of my own as well. And at the end of the day, sometimes it comes down to the numbers. And if you
Yes.
realize this as an employee, it'll make you kind of move a little bit different. So that way you're positioning yourself either, do I want to be part of the run the business? And I realized quickly, I
Yes.
don't like the run the business house, because the
Right.
run the business house is operations and it's a lot of the same stuff every day. And I never
Mhm.
liked that. So
Yes.
I knew that I was going to be part of the grow the business, which meant I had to be highly productive or I was
Yes.
going to be cut.
Yes. Exactly. But you were willing, right,
Hmm.
to one, do some self-examination and then be really
Exactly.
clear about what it is you want. And that ties into kind of the next question. And you mentioned it earlier about knowing, what it is you needed to do, what your skills were, and what your good skills were not, right?
Hmm.
when you start to build a business, one of the decisions you make is, hey, here's what I'm going to do, but that means I have to say no to other stuff. And not all money's good money, right? Even though sometimes when we're beginning,
Yeah.
we're like, please, right? I got bills to pay, I got a mortgage to pay.
You're
Just
begging for a contract because you're
what?
scared.
Yes, that fear makes you do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But if you sit now, 5 years in, what are some of the things that you had to say no to that at the time you're like, if I say no to this, it's probably over. I probably need to say yes, but you ultimately said no.
Okay, so I'll give you one example, and this was
Mhm,
during COVID, and and actually we didn't start off as a staffing agency. We started off just project management consulting because that's what I was good at. That's what I
mhm,
did, and like I said, I had other businesses, but they were also the businesses I worked alongside with my husband while I
mm,
still had a regular job. So it was more of
mhm,
side businesses that were still very
yeah,
profitable, very good businesses and stuff, but not my sole source of income.
yeah.
So, anyways, we started this business in 2019, and then in 2020, COVID happens. And
Mhm,
also in 2020, I got the opportunity to enter into the staffing industry,
mhm.
knowing nothing about staffing because I have no HR background.
Right, right.
So I realized quickly that I had to get the right staff in place to make sure that we had the recruiters that we needed, to the sources, all of that good stuff.
Mhm,
During this time, if you remember back in 2020 to 2021, probably in 2021 specifically, after the world opened back up again, and
mhm,
in Jacksonville especially, we kind of never closed,
mm.
which is, if anyone knows about Jacksonville,
Yes.
Florida, we were closed for probably like a month or so,
Right.
but still the restrictions were there,
Mhm.
and a lot of people were working from home, and which meant that, they need daycares also
Yes.
were hit very hard.
Yes.
And I come from a world of, I'll let me take the opportunity. So
Yes.
my account manager at the time had some great relationships. He was doing a great job, and he got a contract with the daycare.
Mhm,
And I said, okay, let's try it. It's great.
mhm.
I'm not against it.
Right.
We have the employees that know how to staff the daycares, and
Mhm,
long story short, our phone started blowing up with
mm,
clients that wanted our services to staff daycares.
mhm.
After doing it for a little while, we tried so hard to get out of the contracts. They did not want out of the contracts. It
Right.
was the most stressful situation. And I literally said to our team, I said, if anyone contacts you to staff a daycare, I don't care how much money they want to pay us, we are not
No,
doing it.
no.
But we had to get to that point
Yeah.
where I said, absolutely not. And
Mm,
it's
mhm.
because of, it was a really, really difficult time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you're working with kids, they have to have certain certifications. And
Yes.
it was very stressful for the employees too,
Mhm,
because if
mhm.
someone has COVID and they're not able to show up for work that day, then they're going to be stuck with all of these extra kids. And it was
Yes.
just altogether just
Yeah.
a horrible situation for us. But because I was scared about, will I have the clients in the industries that I wanted to
Yeah.
support, I went ahead and accepted all of these contracts that were not
Mhm.
really, I didn't really think it through. I
Right.
thought, okay, this is great. We can do it. Yes, we had a
Mhm.
lot of candidates that were going to interviews. We had a lot of candidates that were hired, but at what cost? At
Yes.
stress, at there were so many problems that we weren't prepared for because
Mhm.
daycares were not our industry, you
Right.
know? And sometimes you have to take a step back and realize that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it.
Yes, that part. Yes. Yes. And again, COVID, you're running a
Mhm.
business, you're trying to get money in. You actually had employees too, so you're staffing people, you got to pay
Yes.
payroll. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so much pressure that sometimes will have us making decisions for the moment, and we don't necessarily recognize or understand the longer term impact of those decisions. So if you think about that, you know, have you been able to, or have you allowed yourself to? I don't know if I'd even allow myself to do this because it might like hurt my feelings. Did you allow yourself to go back and say, okay, here's the great thing, like a postmortem. Here's the great things we learned, right? Here's all the stuff we learned about doing that. And here's what we missed by taking on this business. Here's where we might have been, 10 steps, 12 steps, 2 steps ahead in
Mhm.
this other space, but we were so covered over with this other thing that was not in our zone of genius, in our strategic plan, that we actually
Mhm.
missed some opportunity because our fear of what was happening in the world led us to do something that our gut said no, but the flesh is weak, right?
Yes. Even mine too.
Right, right.
So, yeah, so my background's in project management.
Yes,
So after every project you do a lessons learned or a
yes,
postmortem or whatever, right? So, internally, I'm like, I feel like I do it every week. I feel
yes,
like I run a year project every week.
yes, right.
The amount of things that and that's another thing I wanted to mention. A lot of people during the whole COVID movement and during this whole new, I'm only going to do so much work.
Mm,
A lot of people are starting businesses.
yes.
Now, luckily before COVID, I ran businesses before,
Hmm.
so I understood the life of an entrepreneur and what
Yeah.
it really takes. But the thing is that until you've experienced until you have a company and you have employees and you have a lot of payroll and a
Hmm.
significant amount of outstanding invoices, you
Hmm.
really don't understand all of the possible constraints that can happen, all of the
Yes.
possible issues that can happen on a daily basis in a business. And I didn't know everything because, like I said, I wasn't full on, and I
Right.
still don't know everything. I
Hmm.
know to bring the right people on,
Right. Right.
and that's the most important thing. I know how to build the right team,
Yes.
and they are, better than I am. And so the thing is that I whenever we bring on new clients or whenever we're doing different things, I'll look and see like what's the performance, how is this relationship
Hmm.
going, how is this
Hmm.
collaboration going, and so I'll reach out to the employees that are working and I say, hey, I need a report on this, I need a report on that, and they know me so much they produce the items that I need quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
when I tell you my team is really amazing, and just because of my experience and combined with corporate America and
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, because of my experience, I can quickly read data and
Yeah.
determine what my next step is going to be. I wasn't like that before,
Hmm.
but now I've had so much experience that I can look and see, okay, we had a 10% success rate in this area. We only
Hmm.
had a 2% success rate in this area. We've had no success over here, but this client has only been with us for, 90 days. And
Right.
typically it takes 120. So let's give it a
Hmm.
little more time. Like I know all of that type of stuff now,
Yes.
so I can easily have those continuous postmortems and adjust. So the
Yes.
thing about it is that you're constantly adjusting because you're never going to
Hmm.
be perfect. I know
Right.
that there's a lot of missed business that I've had. I
Yeah.
know that there's a lot of mistakes that I've made, and and I
As
just,
we all
we
have.
just kind of push past it.
Hmm.
Have the right people around you, and give you the
Hmm.
encouragement that you need, and move on and make the next
Yeah.
decision.
Yes. Well, and you touched on something, you've said it a couple times, but I think this last time in particular, tying it to kind of that experience and that exposure is the other thing that people don't realize, women-owned businesses has grown by like 114%, right? Women are starting
Mhm.
businesses faster than any other demographic, and Black and Latina women faster in that gender, right, than anyone else.
Mhm.
And what people, I think, sometimes don't realize, because we're in this social media world and everybody sees the start your six-figure coaching business with no experience and buy my sales thing. And you could do, I mean, everybody's got a gimmick, everybody's got a list,
Yeah.
everybody's got a thing. And that idea that there is work behind building a business, you might get to be that 0.1% or 1% that just grabs lightning in a bottle from the very beginning, maybe, but that even brings a different set of issues with it. So if you think you're just going to decide, I'm going to run a business tomorrow and everything's laid out, you got your processes, things are running, and all you get to do is show up to meetings and be on people's podcasts and say, I'm a CEO,
I wish.
sweetie. Stop drinking that Kool-Aid, because that's not real, right? That's not the truth. It's just not the truth. So if you were to give an entrepreneur, and let's take an entrepreneur who is reaching a point where they're like, I I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm good at. I've built a business for X number of years and I'm really good at it. It's not turning the way I want it to turn, but I know I'm really good at this. What advice would you give them about kind of staying power and staying true to what they're trying to do and evaluating what their options are?
So one of the things that as an entrepreneur, knowing what I'm good at, and also starting this company as a solopreneur, meaning that all of the work
Yes.
was out of what I did
Yes.
personally, because we started off in, tech consulting.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I had to adjust was trading my time for dollars. So trading
Yes.
hours for dollars. And you can know what you're good at, but as long as you're trading hours for dollars, you're never going to reach where you want to be as an entrepreneur. I mean, if your goal is to be a six-figure company, you can reach that. You can definitely
Absolutely.
reach that. And I think a lot of people can reach that with a regular job.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not going to say that it's easy, but
Right.
depending on what field you're in, I mean, I come from tech, so
Mhm.
yeah, every tech company
Right.
makes six figures. I mean, come on now.
Right.
This is
Right.
a this
It's
is
a
if
tech
you're not,
world.
then you
Yes.
definitely need to do some adjustments.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
but if you once I realized that I had to stop doing that in order
Mhm.
to run the business,
Yeah.
because either I'm going to work in the business or I'm going to run the business. You can't really do both if you're going to be 1,000%. If you're going to
Mhm.
be really, really successful, you can't do both. And
Yeah.
also, you have to figure out how, like, build your plan. What is it? How do you like box your day? Do you need to time box your day? Do you need to write it out? In my office, I'm sitting in my office right now. I have these big, giant, huge glass board on my wall, and I'm really big about mapping out processes and
Yeah.
task lists and different things for me to do. And I change my mind throughout the day, and I say I'm not
Right.
even going to do that anymore. But it helps me to move forward, to realize where do I need to put my attention. And if
Mhm.
you figure out what the most important things are to you and your
Mhm.
business, and also figure out how you can allocate those tasks, then
Yeah.
you will probably be a lot happier in what you're doing. Because even I was at some point, and even sometimes I'm like, why am I even doing this? This is stressful. But
Yeah.
why is it so stressful? It's stressful because you're not allocating things properly.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned, that a lot of Black and Latino women are opening up, or more of us are becoming entrepreneurs. We are used to doing everything. We're used to doing a lot of stuff in our families,
Yes.
and it's just something that I think has been instilled in us from
Mhm.
the beginning of time.
Yes.
I come from a household where my mom, she went to work and everything, but she still came home and cooked and cleaned and made my
Exactly.
dad's plate. And I still cook, and, I make plates and I do all of that stuff. But at
Yeah.
the same time, when it comes to your business, you have to empower your employees, and you have to
Mhm.
empower your team to be able to work. And so my advice to an entrepreneur that knows that what they're really good at: figure out the things that you are not good at.
Yeah.
Allocate all of those tasks and figure out what makes you happy, and focus 75% of the time on what makes you happy and what
Right.
you're good at. Because then you'll be able to see you'll be able to see like unsurmountable growth. And
Mhm.
even I was talking over this past weekend, I was talking to some entrepreneurs, and I said, I don't even understand sometimes how some of the contracts come across our table, because uh, it just is from God, because we're moving in the right direction,
Yes.
and it's just one of those things that will happen, and you just have to have faith, and it will happen for you.
Absolutely. That is such a powerful word, right? You got to get out of
Mm,
your own way, not try to do everything, not trading time for dollars, right? And
mhm.
and that includes when you're talking to people because they'll do the math in their head. Wait a minute, it's how many sessions for how much money? It's like you're not paying me for the time. You're paying me for
Yeah.
my expertise. I'm gifting you the time.
Mhm.
That's different. This is not a time for dollars conversation, but you have to get your
Yeah.
mind wrapped around that in order for you to have that conversation with people, right? And that all of those historical things that have built up in us about how we're rewarded and how we should work and what real work is. And if are you really doing all the things you should be doing if you aren't doing all the things? And that's head trash, right? And that gets us in trouble
Mhm.
as we're trying to build businesses. And and I want you guys to think about, when you hear that conversation about getting your team and having the right team, understand that there's team with a capital T. So that's W-2 employees, that's contractors, that's independent contractors, that's freelancers, that's service providers, right? So if your business isn't social media, you don't necessarily need a W-2 social media manager. Go find a social media service and you guys get into a contract. That is an invoice that you're invoiced because they are providing a service. It is not core to your business. It's like
Yep.
marketing, right? You go out and find a marketing firm, right? So those kind of things really think through, but that requires you to do what Jadeè said as well. Plan. Have a plan. My dad always said proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Have a
Mhm.
plan. And when you have a plan as a foundation, you can do what she does as well. Say, oh, yeah, I'm not doing that today. And you can go erase your whiteboard,
Mhm.
right? And redo something. But if you got nothing, if you got a blank sheet of paper, you're going to be doing all the things and you don't even know how much closer you're getting to your goal.
Mhm.
You have no idea because you got nothing, right? At least make a plan. So as we end, because I could talk to you for the next 4 days. So as we end, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to, I'm going to say, a new entrepreneur, someone who is even considering starting a business? What would be the one key piece of advice that you would give them as they are deciding, I want to be an entrepreneur? This is what I want to do now.
Hmm. That's a good question because I do get a lot of requests and inboxes and messages from people that are looking to start businesses and my best advice is to figure out what it is that you want to do.
Mhm.
I was actually many times I would sit there and I'm like, what is it that I even want to do? You
Yeah.
know? I
Yeah.
mean, and be flexible. I know you said one piece of advice.
Yeah. That's okay.
Flexibility and
Yeah.
figuring out
Yes.
flexibility and figuring out what you actually want to do because, you know, a lot of times when people start businesses, they're thinking, oh, let me go get a logo, let me pick out a name, let me build a website. I had a tech company for a year with no website and no official logo. And I made more money in those 12 months, in the first 6 months of starting the company than I
Mhm.
made every year for the past 7 years prior.
Mhm.
So you don't need all of those things. You just need to know what you want to do and you need to build a plan and start getting there. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You just got to keep taking one step every day or a few steps every day. I
Mhm.
personally like the number 3 and the number 7. So
Yes.
I try to do at least 3 things towards the
Yeah.
goal, but I got to have at least 7 goals
Yep.
at all times.
I love it. I love it. Y'all heard it here. One, decide what it is you want to do and then be flexible, right? Because things happen, life happens, the struggle is real, right? But if you know what you want to do and you allow some flexibility, you're able to move with the flow, right? As they surrender to the flow, what's meant for you will come and what's not will be repelled. And that's the way you want it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. This has been so rich. And I know that there are people out there going, okay, now I can do this. I can really do this. And I see the truth about doing this. And there are some people who are like, ooh, maybe I need to wait. And that's what we
And
want.
that's okay.
Yes, it's okay. We want you to stand in your power. Do it when it's meant for you. And don't feel like just because during COVID, everybody started a business, that in order for you to be valid, you have to have a business. That's not true. These corporations need exceptional people, and they need exceptional women, and they need exceptional people of color and women of color. We need y'all in corporate so y'all can fix this mess that's going on. Because I came out, Jadeè came out, right? So we need some of y'all to stay to get it where
Right.
it's supposed to be. So don't feel like if you're not doing entrepreneurship that you're somehow missing. You do you. Do the thing that's meant for you. So thank you for tuning into the show. As always, I appreciate every listen, every download, every share. If this touched you, please share this information. Jadeè, if someone is looking for information around how to get in touch with you, they know somebody who is looking for, project management or talent staffing, how do they find you?
The best thing to do would be to go to our website, corporatesolutionstech.com. And on that homepage, if you're looking for a job, it says, look for a job, find a
Right.
job, and you click that button. If you're looking for staff, it says get staff, or it says find staff, I believe, and you click
Mhm.
that button. If you want consulting services, or you want to just get our contact information, that information is there as well under business services. And we're here in Jacksonville, Florida. Our office is in the JTB area, South Point area of Jacksonville, Florida. So you can always reach out to us here. Um, we're not always in the office. A lot
Right.
of our team is remote. So
Mhm.
the best thing to do would be to go to our website and schedule time if you would like, one of those services, or just go and apply for a job on the site.
I love it. Y'all heard it here first. You heard it here first. Reach out to her and go and listen to this and go follow her on LinkedIn, see what she's talking about and what she's doing. And if you know someone who is in this space and is looking for something, this is also a place for you to be paying it forward and helping somebody else. And potentially they may just find that exact thing that they need and that they're looking for because you made a connection for them. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time on the Rutledge Perspective. Take care. Thank you for watching this video. If it said something to you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And you can find more of my video content here. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.